Imagine waiting for a train, a normal train that would take you home, only to find that it isn't just any ordinary train. It's the midnight train, a ghostly locomotive that some claim is designed to transport souls to the afterlife. The chilling truth is, many believe this train exists. But what happens if you step aboard? Could this be your final journey? The thought is enough to send chills down anyone's spine. For centuries, stories of this mysterious train have woven through the fabric of folklore, haunting those who hear them. Some say it's just a shadow, a fleeting image on the horizon, barely visible. Others describe it in terrifying detail: a train that moves without tracks, passing through fog and darkness, its windows glowing with an unnatural light. But the questions remain: are these stories true, or are they just a product of overactive imaginations? Is the midnight train an actual phenomenon, a passageway between life and death, or is it merely a manifestation of the fear of what lies beyond? And if this train is real, how can you know when it's time to board? Across the world, the midnight train has been described in various forms, but the details always share one thing in common. It is more than just a train. It is the vessel that carries souls to their final destination. The earliest known legends come from rural areas of Europe, where villagers speak in hushed tones of a train that appears at the stroke of midnight. It is said to move silently, its tracks barely visible, shrouded in mist. The passengers on board are not ordinary people, they are figures who are only seen when death is near. In these stories, the midnight train is often a symbol of finality, a reminder that death is inevitable. One particularly eerie account comes from a small village in Japan, where the legend is especially strong. The midnight train there is said to appear only on the darkest of nights, its silhouette glowing against the blackened sky. Locals believe that only those who are near death, or those burdened by a deep sorrow, can see it. But the strangest part is this: no one can board the train unless they are meant to. No one knows how, but only those who are destined for it can approach the station where it stops. The villagers often speak of how a loved one, taken too soon, may reappear in their dreams, guiding them toward the platform. The whispers say that, when the time comes, the midnight train will appear to take them away forever. And then there are the more personal accounts, the stories that seem too real to be just folklore. A woman named Elena from a small town in Russia recalls a near-fatal accident that left her lying unconscious in a hospital bed. After her accident, she remembers hearing the sound of a train whistle, distant and eerie. The sound grew louder as though drawing nearer. To her shock, when she looked out of the window, she saw the midnight train. The train was unlike anything she had ever seen before. It was made of mist and shadows, glowing faintly in the night. But the most chilling detail was the people on board. They weren't alive, at least not in the traditional sense. They appeared to be familiar faces, family members, old friends, people who had passed away long ago. But their eyes were empty, hollow, as though they were trapped in a state between life and death. The conductor of the train, a figure draped in a dark cloak, stood at the front. Eleanor recalls that when the conductor locked eyes with her, it felt as though he could see into her very soul. He spoke to her, though his words were incomprehensible. But the most terrifying part was his final message: "You're already late for the journey you're meant to take." Eleanor woke up in the hospital, heart racing, drenched in sweat. But the memory of that train, the figures on board, and the conductor's cold stare stayed with her for the rest of her life. Though she lived, she would never be free of the haunting feeling that she had glimpsed something far beyond the realm of the living. There are others who claim to have encountered this train while traveling down dark, deserted roads. One of these accounts comes from a man named Daniel, who was traveling through the mountains late one night. The fog had rolled in, and he could barely see in front of him. But then he saw it. The midnight train appeared from the mist, moving silently down a track that shouldn't even exist. The train's windows were illuminated, but instead of light, Daniel felt an overwhelming sense of dread wash over him. Without thinking, he found himself following the train, mesmerized by its eerie glow. As he followed the train, he noticed something strange. The landscape around him began to shift. The road that had once been familiar was now dark and unfamiliar. When he reached a clearing, he saw the train stop at an old, abandoned platform. Hesitant, but driven by a need to understand, Daniel got out of his car and approached the platform. As he stepped closer, the door to the train opened, and though he felt fear crawling up his spine, he stepped inside. The interior of the train was silent. The air was cold, and the atmosphere was heavy with the weight of something indescribable. The passengers were sitting, their eyes vacant, staring straight ahead, and their faces were eerily blank. Daniel felt as if he had stepped into another realm, a place where time no longer mattered. There was something about the train that made him feel like an outsider, like he didn't belong. But before he could leave, the conductor appeared, a tall, thin figure dressed in a dark coat, with hollow eyes that seemed to pierce through him. The conductor's voice, when it came, was like a whisper in the darkness. "This train doesn't stop for everyone," he said. "Not everyone who boards gets off at the next stop." Daniel tried to move, but his legs wouldn't obey him. It was as if the train had a hold on him, anchoring him in place. As the train slowly began to move, Daniel's heart raced in terror. But then, as quickly as it had appeared, the train vanished, leaving only the faint echo of a whistle in the distance. Daniel found himself standing alone, back at the clearing, his car now miles away from the platform. The midnight train had disappeared, but the terror and confusion remained. He never spoke of it to anyone, too afraid that if he did, the train would return, this time to take him for good. These stories, whether rooted in ancient legends or modern-day encounters, raise deep, unsettling questions about the nature of life and death. Could the midnight train be a glimpse into another realm, a passageway between life and the afterlife? Or is it simply the product of fear, our minds creating something to explain what we cannot understand? Whatever the truth may be, one thing is certain: the midnight train continues to haunt those who hear its whistle, and the legend grows stronger with each passing year. Do you believe in the midnight train? Have you had an encounter with something that made you question the line between life and death? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. And if you're fascinated by this story, don't forget to check out our next video on the most haunted places in the world. Who knows what we might uncover next?